Improv saves, world agrees. This week's issue.
Obsessive compulsive learns how to give up control and look forward to it.
Anxious people pleaser finds a way to take up space himself, to be present with himself, and be present with others.
Absolutely. Touch Baseball from St. Louis.
I love them so much. What beautiful, talented nerds. And
yes.
I think that they're okay with me saying that.
It just occurred to me right now. So you're going to hear this episode. We recorded it during our improv festival.
The Third Coast Improv Festival.
And they performed later that night, I believe. And we talked a lot about sort of the guts it takes to sometimes do patient, slow improv for an audience. And then they went on to open a block of the show with a 25-minute, very patient scene that gorgeous, like that might not have even, and this is not disparaging them, this is to their credit, not a lot of laughs until about like halfway in. And for me, like as a performer, I was like, oh God, that must be like, they must be panicking in a way that we had talked about, but they actually just sort of owned what they practiced, what they preached.
Yes.
And absolutely developed all those relationships, and everything started paying off at that halfway point. And, yeah.
And they talked about Ryan. I feel like they discussed how good Ryan was at object work, and we got to see it in the most, I mean, I loved their set so much, and have just really enjoyed getting to know them as people, teachers, and performers.
Another thing that comes up a lot in this conversation, I remember, is that they're kind of our counterpoints, just in a different community.
Yes.
Finding all the different ways that our lives look pretty similar, just in a slightly different...
Lives, and also style, approach, the way that we think about this art form, and also the ways in which it reflects life and impacts life. I just don't have, like, I'm sorry, I can't say too many good things about them. I really like them. I'll just like show all my cards. I'm never cool when I like somebody. I was just, I'm thinking about how many times when I was listening to them talk, I was just writing notes like a madwoman, because they kept saying such beautiful, there's part of these conversations that you think your mind is as a performer. There's part of these conversations where my mind is as a teacher, and then also just as like a human. And it touched all 3 points in all 3 versions of me. Were just lit up by things that they said. You know, I have taken things that they've said, words that they said, and used them in my classes when I'm teaching the day after they left, you know, just immediately.
Absolutely. And I think one of the ways that we live parallel lives is that we think about however all the different metaphors that we can use to talk about the work we do in an improv space is just like our what we're doing constantly in our lives is thinking about this, bringing them into our classrooms. They use the archaeological excavation metaphor. Immediately started using that.
Yes, so thank you.
Yes, I'm admitting that I'm stealing.
Improv is full of theft. Beautiful reciprocal theft. I listened to an entire Alan Watts audiobook because of them. They'll you know, Touch Baseball, Ashley Ryan, I'm here. You tell me what to do, and I will, you know, I'll do it. Jump how high situation.
Well, enjoy our friends from St. Louis.
Touch Baseball.
Welcome, Ryan and Ashley, or AKA Touch Baseball. If you'd like to introduce yourself and what it is that you do.
Go ahead. You're doing great.
Hi, my name is Ashley Rube. I'm one half of a 2-person improv team called Touch Baseball.
This is long form improvisation?
This is long form. Okay. We typically we like to play really slowly.
Yeah.
So for a while we were trying to do like, you know, a montage of scenes, but our scenes would all be 7 minutes long. So at some point we were like, we should just do a mono scene.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Myers. I'm the other half of Touch Baseball. And yeah, we do long form improv. I would say, yeah, it's mostly a mono scene, but, you know, occasionally we'll pop out to something that's fun, but, you know, come right back. It's pretty like emotion forward improv, which is fun for us. So yeah, that's a result of the kind of the community and the theater that we're in. So
absolutely. Speaking of which, as you all operate, you were not Nashville natives, as Emma and I are. You were from?
You're originally from South Carolina. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, but we do improv in St. Louis, Missouri.
Did you have any aspirations of extending your life outside of St. Louis, or did it just sort of roll into?
It just sort of like rolled into it. I mean,
You used to want to move.
yeah, I used to want to move. I had like thoughts of I was a theater kid in high school, and so thoughts of all the usual places, the LAs and New Yorks, and then eventually Chicago's. But St. Louis has kind of like dug its talents, tendrils into me, and I really love being there.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, like if I hear that you're born and raised in St. Louis, it makes absolute sense to me that you would never want to leave. I grew up mostly in Murray, Kentucky, and like St. Louis was like, that was it. That was the metropolitan. Yeah, that was the metropolitan area. That it's like, if you were there, that's where I first saw a baseball game, saw the Arch, went to my first Six Flags in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big city as far as I'm concerned. So Touch Baseball has been together for how long?
Well, we formed right before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So we started talking about, like, we'd been on 145s, which is a long form narrative musical improv team. We'd been doing that for a little while, and then both of us were interested in doing like a twosie or duo long form team. We're like, oh, this is a great idea. This is like what, December 2020?
Yeah.
Or so either like December 2019 or January 2020, we're like, oh, it'd be a great idea to start a long form improv team. And then obviously we know everything that happened, but we just like eventually started like Zooming.
And just talking a lot about improv. We spent this also kind of goes back to how professionally we started doing improv, like for money. You know, like a professional. And so we were just talking about improv all the time because we missed it a lot. And we're sort of like, surely one day we can do this again. And so when the theater opened again, we just kind of picked up right where we left off and started hitting the, we call them twosies. Do you call them twosies?
We call duos mostly. I was about to ask, like the twosie, because we also mentioned how everything in this world, goes by at least 3 different names. Yeah. Sure. Games and Well, we'll back up like even further than like, so for one of our main sort of questions that we like to get to is just improv origin in general. So you've been in St. Louis, and how long has the Improv Shop been going for?
2009.
2009. Oh God, you're older than us. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So 2009. I mean, that started like a lot of basements above bars, and then
it started with like a Craigslist ad.
Yeah,
it was like, do people want to meet up and learn
play together?
Which is wild to think about now, where I'm like, wow, the world is so different now. But fortunately, people did answer that ad and had a nice time. And then the community developed, and we eventually rented a space and then bought a building, and we've been in our location since 2016.
But before getting involved with that at whatever level you did, how did improv enter your lives in general?
I moved to St. Louis in 2016, and I was working in nonprofit advocacy. Mm-hmm. I have a theology background, and I was still trying to figure out like what's the sort of how do I take the academic side and then intersect that with actually like some kind of practice and all sorts of stuff. So I was really trying to figure all that out. Meanwhile, I've always wanted to be an actor. Yeah. All those kids were like, I had to get a job and like go to college, but I really wanted to be an actor. And I got connected with some people. We did like a short film festival at one point and just made some friends that knew people at the Improv Shop. Mm-hmm. One of my coworkers actually did improv at the Improv Shop. So it kind of just ended up in my radar until I was like, I should just go and check it out. And then I realized they taught classes. And then I realized like it's one of the only ways adults can take an acting class without having to already have been some kind of an actor. Do you know what I mean?
Sure,
like it's hard to get into an acting class. Or a theater sort of learning environment as an adult. Yeah. And improv is like the one way I know of that's like you're allowed to not know what you're doing and come here completely new to something and figure it out. So I did. and then I was just sort of in it from day one.
Awesome. And we could circle back to this at some point, but just like the accessibility of improv and people not coming from theater backgrounds has been one of the coolest parts about this community and teaching here is like the Nashville specific, and you can talk about St. Louis specific. If people do not have that performance bug or background, they just accidentally sort of found out of intrigue of like, I've had people like show up, say, recommended by a friend, saw a Google post, I'm just looking for something to do. And so it's like I had taken classes in Chicago and went through IO and stuff, and everything is like improv, insular, like, just incestuous, sort of everybody's, angling towards all these tracks that you go down for performance. But our community is like just people who are just discovering this process with no greater ambitions for it. And there's something very, very special about that.
Yeah, I call it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, I would say that our community like feels similar. There's no track. Like, we joke about that. There's nobody like in the audience.
Lord Michael's in the audience.
That's like the bit. It's like who's in the audience that night. That's just a bit that we often do. It's just like people that are really interested in the art form and just like pursuing the art form like for the sake of itself, like because it's just so endlessly fascinating and cool.
And community theater is intimidating. It just is. So like if you're like, oh, there's a part of me that's like I'm well into my career, I'm not looking to go back to college or like learn how to access to the stage is just really hard.
Yeah.
If you don't already kind of have that, and it's an intimidating space to go in. So the fact that we teach it and are like, you're allowed to show up and be bad at this, and like that's good. That's like that's part of it is learning how to do the thing. Adults are just so bad at being bad at things, and like it's just valuable to be like, no, this is a space where you don't already have to be an expert in something. Which is awesome. And then people also end up finding community and having a good time and learning things, and then just want to support it.
Well, and then they eventually realize that that's what it was all about in the first place.
Yeah.
So
it was the friends you made along the way.
Not to be like super, not to be super corny, but
but genuinely, I mean that's when we teach it, we're like, take your number one rule is take care of each other.
Yeah,
always.
And just the people that we've improvised with that you would never imagine through unscripted. I can get into that story in a bit, but this teacher named Joe that we had over in a gym teacher who we were doing 3 professional development sessions over Zoom for this school one day, and we had like 20 people in one session and like 15 in another, and then it was the 3rd session of the day. We had one person show up for it, and it was this gym teacher named Joe who was from New Jersey, I believe.
He's in the Bronx.
Bronx, okay. But it was some thick accent, and he was like, I didn't know what this was. And then Emma and I proceeded to spend an hour and a half, the 3 of us, just teaching him improv games over Zoom, and he freaking loved it by the end of it. Like, he had no
had no idea how lucky he was. He's getting like 2-on-1 intensive sessions. Like,
innumerable stories like that it's just like, this person, I would never have pegged them to have any ambition or interest in what we're doing here, and yet they come out of it like just like with their spirit lifted and like really engaged with it, and it was like, that's a powerful thing. I'm more and more coming to understand the power of improv outside of performance, because growing up I was a comedy nerd, wanted to be a comedian, a performer, to where I just think about it going towards that end, to where I'm constantly being surprised about like, no, this has way more import than just that, stage version.
Yeah.
But you and your was it the Improv Shop as well that introduced you to the art form?
Yeah. I was seeing shows at the old venue. Just started going to shows casually. I had maybe 1 or 2 friends that were in the community that knew I was into. You mentioned being like a comedy nerd. Yeah. Like I was kind of the same way. Had no idea something existed in St. Louis. Yeah. So I went and saw shows. I was like, wow, this is really great. This is really cool. And then I ended up going to Chicago to visit some friends, and we went and saw the Deltones at the IO. Mm-hmm. It was my first like narrative musical improv show, and I happy cried like in this weird it was this weird mixture of emotions of like, it wasn't sad, but it was just like this. It kind of showed me what was possible for performance. Like, it was really moving in a way. And so I went back and signed up for classes immediately after that, because I'd already seen really, really good shows in our community. But I came from a musical background, so I got my degree in vocal performance and opera. And so I was like, oh, you can sing and do improv at the same time, which was like a completely crazy concept, because I'd just never been positioned to me. And I was kind of like the same as Ashley. We went through like different cohorts classes, but I mean, it was like as soon as I signed up for classes, I was going to 2 or 3, 4 shows a week. Like I just dove in head first.
Yeah. I'll go back to the original thing that we talked about beforehand, and I'll bring it up now. It does seem as though you and Mirrored here in Nashville, we are at a point where we are trying to make our lives about this art form as well. Yeah. How's it going for you?
Good. So it's really funny because we work for this independent theater. Yeah. We don't have a nonprofit arm, so we're completely sort of an entity, a for-profit entity, but we all wear a million hats. Yeah. Ryan and I run the business services side, so we do like the applied improv workshops with businesses and nonprofits and schools and things like that. I also do some like just operation stuff at the theater because someone's got to make schedules, right? Procedure and stuff. And then we teach. And these are all sort of different buckets within the same thing because that's just how these businesses work. And it's funny when we teach improv, which for our adult students showing up on a Wednesday at 7 p.m., it feels very much like a side gig or like a side hobby thing. And they're like, so what's your real job? And I'm always like, and I'm like, believe it or not, this. So earlier when you were like, I try to dress professionally for class, I'm like, I should do that because they see me in sweatpants teaching improv class and they're like, you have a real job, right?
They're worried.
Yeah. But it's kind of a lot of, it's going well, I think. And like, clearly the community's existed for a long time and we have a really robust training program. Like folks are invested in it, but it still takes this weird amount of reassuring each other that this is real. Like sometimes we have to call each other up and be like, this is a real job.
Yeah.
We're doing, this is good. Like, how do we, describe it to people or how do we position ourselves? But especially we call them muggles, but outside the improv.
Muggles, normies.
Yeah.
I think too, just like you were talking about finding the applications like outside of the theater, especially in like the corporate space, like having to constantly, like describe like, the improv thing. That's fun. That's cute. Whatever. Yeah. And I, again, coming from a music background, like I'm used to it. Like, you still doing the music thing? Yeah. It's the music thing, the improv thing. And then like on one side of it, you don't want to scare anybody off. But like on the other side of it, like you have, as a teacher, I'm sure you've seen the way that it changes people. Yeah. Like, and kind of impressing that onto, your students and your cohorts that are going through like the corporate space is like, I can't stress. I know that I'm like selling this to you to some degree, but I can't stress to you enough how important this is. Like how important I think this is. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Eva and I do talk a bit about this recently about like our worry that we veer into like guru, like sort of spaces a little bit, or what are we selling? Oh my God, this is bullshit. And am I a bullshit artist? But it's like, I don't believe so, because I think improv is like, what we're giving people, only they can make something of it. We're just creating a space where you have to embrace it for what it is. And there's no like agenda to it. It's just like, we're going to set this playground up and we get all this value out of it. If you plug yourself in, you can too. But it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. We teach an entire, maybe I'll do this as well. It feels unique to our region, but I'm not sure. We do an entire level on just group mind.
Oh, cool.
And it's not in the context of any particular form. Like, it's not like, for Harold or something. We just work on group mind as a concept. Yeah. So it's 8 weeks of ensemble building and it's level 2. So like, as soon as you've done some fundamentals, it's like, okay, we're going to talk about how you like take care of each other in these like really embodied ways. And it's like a woo-woo level.
Yeah.
People are like, this is real woo-woo. And I'm like, and that's when the first couple of weeks of that class, I'm constantly just like, giving caveats and being like, okay, I know this sounds wild, you guys, but this is real and I'm not trying to bullshit anybody. But it's genuinely like, we just don't use our brains this way, or we don't live in work or live in environments that reward us for thinking this way, which doesn't mean we can't. So it's a lot of getting into that. But those are the ones where I'm like, someday someone's going to be like, this is really dumb and not real. And what are you Why are you making us do this? But by and large, like after a couple weeks, folks were like, oh, I see it. So that's always reassuring.
The group mind part, that's awesome that it's the second level and the woo-woo. I like that you refer to it as the woo-woo level. So one of the bigger like magical things that I see people experience or that I experience as a teacher is watching people think in a different way that they're not encouraged to think elsewhere. And it's that collaborative process. I know that y'all are thinking about a lot of that with your group mind and just stepping outside of yourself to build something with someone else in a moment and knowing that the health of what you're doing, like it's going to have the most energy and the most fun if you are purely just engaged with thinking outside yourself, spontaneously building something with someone else and getting on that same page and agreement and group mind sort of stuff. I want to segue back into your duo team because I just had a question. Like you say, you slow play most scenes.
Yeah.
Is that when do you feel as though you're in a scene and y'all are on the same page? Is it you've been working together for so long at this point that it happens quickly, or is it still like a process of exploration with every scene and start of show?
I feel like it's a combination. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've been, talking and teaching and just in this world of improv for so long that having those sort of like fundamentals like in the back of our heads is really helpful. But I do think that there's some element of discovery that's happening every time just as a result of the way that we approach it. So, one of the things that we talk about, I don't know if this is a good time to talk about we talk about like the secret agreement. We talk about that a lot. And it's basically like, you are just in the process of collectively discovering something. And whatever we're discovering exists like outside of both of us. Yeah. So one of the ways I talk about it as a teacher is like, if you are an archaeologist on a dig site, the bones are already in the ground. You are both just like kind of swishing away at the sand and you are collectively discovering the bones. Like this already exists, right? Yeah. But it's not, I didn't put the bones there. Yeah. You didn't put the bones there. The bones were already there. We are collectively discovering them. Yeah. And then there's a whole lot of like other nerdy stuff I can talk about with like how emotional intention and point of view like plays into that and how that we do this all the time. But you can't see it if you're listening. But I'm like shaking.
It's a podcast, Ryan.
Oh yeah, that's how podcasts work. I forgot. I'm sorry. I'm shaking my own hand. But it all like exists sort of in between us, in between us.
Players. I refer to it as, it's funny you say secret agreement. I call it like a co-conspiracy of the players because regardless of what's happening in the scene, we ultimately agree that we're building the thing together. Yeah. And I think the big difference is we know each other really well. We've been doing this together a long time. We work together. So there's just like shared vocabulary. But I think with our team, I'm just really comfortable not knowing what's about to happen. So the discovery part is easier to just jump into because I'm not worried. So specifically with Ryan, like we get on the same page relatively quickly, but I think it's because I'm not spending a bunch of bandwidth worried about being lost. Yeah. Because I'm just very confident we will build context and figure it out. I'm
watching you. Like, I'm not worried about, like, what am I going to come up with? All I have to do is watch you and just react to what you're doing. Right. And just be present.
And I think that's what makes it slow, or maybe it's, like, also small, is we live in those reactions for a long time. Yeah. We did a show a couple months back where Ryan... it's a shame that this is a podcast, but Ryan, who was shaking his own hand a minute ago.
We got some footage.
Ryan's really good at object work. Yeah. That's like one of Ryan's he's just really specific. I'm not great at it. So Ryan will go out and just start doing object work and I'll just sort of watch for a while and be like, me, wow, cool. But he did this whole thing where he was like clearly making, I don't know, soup, stew, something. He's making something in a pot. And like measuring things really carefully. And I watched this for a while. And then I entered the scene. And we hadn't said anything, but I just sort of grabbed something from a counter and just started shaking it in the pot. Because he'd taken so much care. I was like, this must be important. And it was like, it's that small. That was all it was about. Sort of for the next 10 minutes. Was just messing up this recipe.
And why it was important to my character, and then why it was important for your character to take up space in that way.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it feel slow, but it's like, it's also just very like lean. There's not a lot of extra stuff going on because we have fun playing with the really small stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our curriculum track, level 1 fundamentals, 2 scene work, and I largely my bread and butter class is the scene work level 2 class, and I always think about it as the slow people down class. This is the learn patience and learn about the small thing. Part of improv. Level 1, just build confidence in your own voice. Follow impulse, follow the fun, explode in that way. And then I say at the beginning of level 2, a big speech I'll give it the first day is like, so now we've done that, and now we're not going to get critical, but we are going to learn to not treat yes and as I need to add as much stuff to this as I possibly can. Instead of yes and this, it's in add. It should be add, unpack, add,
I like that unpack.
Yeah, that's great.
And well, I think that lines up pretty well with your excavating sort of secret pact, is that, we are slowly sort of unearthing this. And we know that that's our primary goal together. And we're going to find, I found the tail over here, and then you're finding, the teeth over here. But we know that slowly unearthing that.
We call that making it matter.
Making it matter.
Yeah, like what your job is to make what your scene partner does matter. Yeah. So it's like the other way of like and is we call that lifeboating. It's so funny how we come up with just different ways of describing this. Yeah. We're like, stop lifeboating to other stuff. You're not saying no, but you're also not deeply saying yes to anything specifically. Yeah. And it's like, so now we have a scene with like 45 things going on, and we're like, oh.
Yeah. What have we really given attention to in this? We're just overstuffing stuff. And then one of my favorite sort of exercise forms to use is a very like heavy-handed, like you can do it from 2 to up to 4 people I do, but you just have people start doing object work independently of one another, and then they'll do that with their eyes closed for a second. They'll open their eyes and they'll see their scene partner doing one thing, playing ping pong, and the other person's looking at their phone or whatever. And so they'll just have to sort of state what they're doing, and then slowly at the time it's like, okay, so if you had to imagine, why are you on a phone next to this person playing ping pong? And then slowly we sort of build from there. And you can go the way that I like to do it. My favorite version right now is to have 4 people all start doing that, and then the group names all the stuff for one person at a time. And so the group builds up what that person's doing. And then in the going around the group, you start to build up context a little bit, one thing at a time. So if this person's that, what does that mean for you? For the 4th person who hasn't gotten attention yet, they have a lot to base that off based on the small choices. But by the time my students get to the end of that exercise, I'd then say, all right, now just, do 5 or 6 lines from this, using all this information that we know about this. And then it's over, and they'll always say, that was just like a really fun scene. And it's like, and you didn't like really go anywhere. It didn't like progress forward in time. All you were doing was just paying attention to what was happening based off these 4 choices that you all made, like in that setting.
I'm also teaching scene work, and when you have something like that clear, I'm like, you can just see the thing you did. We do like we'll do like 3-line scenes where it's like, who you are, where you are, what you're doing. And then we'll also do an exercise we call banal initiation, big reaction, where it's like you give just a basic line of dialogue, and then a person reacts like mad, sad, glad, or afraid emotionally to it. You make that matter. And whenever I see that happen in class, and then it'll be, they'll have base reality, they'll have a clear emotional point of view, and then we'll stop and they'll be like, oh, well, that was easy. Where should it go? And I'm like, it can stay there.
It can stay there.
It can stay there. Like, you can have a scene. We talk about, you can either be like a mile wide and a puddle deep, or you can do a thimble and go miles and miles and miles and mine it down. And that's always what we're trying to do, is like mine like very small details and very small moments. And you'd be surprised. Like you're talking about like you can yes and, but there are different like grades of like how deeply and intentionally you are yes-anding.
Yeah. And the hard thing, I think, I don't know if you experience this with students, but because obviously there's a power dynamic when you're teaching and folks are like, I'm doing it wrong. And it's like, I'm not interested in right and wrong. That's not a binary I'm really, want to hang my hat on. But the hard thing to explain is I'm like, you're doing a lot more work, and and they're like, how do you make it look so easy? And I'm like, I'm literally doing the easier version of what you're trying to do. not to like take away from sort of, my years of trying to get good at this. But like, when we talk about it, I'm like, you're too smart for your own good. Yeah. Path of least resistance, stick with one thing, trust your, like, and that's when I go back to simple things are not necessarily easy. Yeah. And improv is the silliest thing you will ever do and the hardest thing you will ever do. And it's okay to be like, oh, this is very hard for me. Yeah. But also to sort of say like, but that's not because you're quote unquote, or like capital B bad at something. It's probably because you're working so hard. And you don't have to, which is just, letting people sort of loosen their grip on things is really, really tough.
Yeah, it is really, really tough to like not feel like, and it's only something that I'm getting better at with time and then my own like sort of life journey and ways that I've applied improv to my own life to just be accepting of like where I'm at, be grateful of what I have in this scene, to not get too far ahead of myself. I mean, this is, you don't have to, but if you want to detour into ways that improv has affected your personal life, I had a just this morning, like a sort of wake up, and something about the fall breeze came in through my door and reminded me of a college feeling that I constantly had of being behind.
Yeah. Emma is in the corner, nodding vigorously.
I'm not in, I have no papers due at this time, but I felt like I was just behind and like something wasn't, and I was feeling panicky. I had an audition that didn't go as I had planned yesterday, and so I was living in the disappointment in that, and I was just like very panicky all in a moment, and I was just like, what good is this? Can I bring myself back to just look at what this situation is, look at what this day is? Okay, I got to put these microphones in my car, good. And it's like I have to continually learn this, but it's like you watch people in real time as a teacher, see them up there, and it's like, man, I have to be doing something right now that's interesting or compelling. I have to force this scene into something. And it's just like trying to, that's my level 2 class experience, is trying to get people, it's like, just observe for a bit. Just look at what's in the scene, what has been put into play, what must that mean? Nothing has to be funny. It's just shoot for clarity over comedy.
Yes.
Gosh,
yeah.
I'm like, how good does it feel to just know what's going on? So much better than getting a joke out, right?
Yeah. We say clarity is kindness.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah, it's always really, just speaking of your life and those like slowing down for yourself. It's really humbling when you, I don't know, theoretically talk to your therapist a lot about your work and interests. And then theoretically,
shout out to therapy.
Yeah, shout out to therapy. But and then she will use things I've talked about with improv and be like, so why do you hold yourself to that standard? And I'm like, dang it. But it is like, the stuff we say in class about like be kind to yourself. It's funny in classroom settings with improv, it's a little easier because we're already like the stakes are so low, especially coming back from the pandemic. I'm like, guys, what's the worst that could happen? We're fine. Your scene will happen or it won't or whatever. We're all going to get out of here. It's going to be fine.
The scale should be different now.
Yeah. But with corporate clients and students, the stakes just always feel present. It's your job. It's how good you look to your boss. It's whether you're going to let your colleagues down. It's all these things are happening in the background. And I realized people need permission to not feel responsible for everything. Yeah. And there's something about we were doing. Emma is crying in the corner.
Oh, she's off camera too. We can't. Yeah. Oh
man. Well, and I talk a lot about improv and this is true for myself. This also goes back to like theological stuff. Yeah. What I find interesting about theology, which we could or don't have to get into, but it's about capacity building. It's not about right and wrong. It's just about expanding our number of options, like things we can do if we want to. Yeah. Giving yourself the option to say yes is this really powerful like expansion of yourself. Should you want to say yes, it doesn't mean you have to all the time. Yeah. It doesn't mean that no is suddenly off the table. But isn't it great to like extend your capacity to make these other choices if it makes sense for you and if it's a safe environment? And I was talking to a corporate group And we talk about like control and who feels like they need to have a lot of control over things. And at one point I realized it's not about telling folks like, well, you shouldn't be a control freak, which is kind of sometimes in improv, you can be like, give up control, like just do it. It's more getting to the point with someone that you trust and care about and realizing I shouldn't have to be in control all the time. Yeah. I deserve a space where I am not required to feel in control, to feel safe. And I told a group that, and literally someone just went, oh. and there's a point where people just need to hear that because you don't realize how tightly you've held on to those things until someone is like, tells you deserve something better. And I think that's what improv is for me. Like, we deserve something better. But it takes practice and it takes intention. None of this happens by accident. So in my own life, it's a lot of like stopping and being like, do I deserve a space where I can feel more, at ease? Do I deserve a space where I feel vulnerable? Do I deserve to like give myself a break? And like having to sort of work through that and say yes to myself in those moments. Or at least give myself the chance to say yes to myself in those moments.
Yeah, I'm very taken by this expanding of the capacity idea and like probably just shaking free people's like automatic and instinctive like dichotomy sort of processing of the world. Like, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, this is a threat to me, this is a safe space for me. How do we invite a world where it's like, well, something may not be for you, but you can sort of embrace for a little bit and feel as though you don't have to feel that internal pressure that, you might be doing something wrong or you might be, Yeah, and
it's not your fault. Like, this is how we're typically rewarded.
Yeah.
These are the environments we find ourselves in.
Going back to the emotion game that you play with your students, like adding another name that went by in my college improv group, Community Floss of Southern Illinois University.
Shout out to Community Floss.
We called it instant.
Are you kidding? We were in community.
You heard? Did you go to the Champaign Improv Festival in 2000?
That's not far from us.
We called it instant emo, and it was very much just like this revelatory improvisational moment for me when our college troupe learned that game was like how you can just sort of hotwire a scene, give weight to something, find so much more in just the smallest of things. And I've always carried that with me. Was there any big teacher moment, class, show that you watched? Was there a big aha moment that really opened up improv for you? Or is it just the accumulation of all these experiences over time?
But I think like the thing that comes to mind was like a teaching moment. It was the end of level 2, our group mind session. So I just spent like 8 weeks with my cohort. And at the end of each class, we do just alphas. Is there something that a move that they made that you really enjoyed or made you laugh? Or is there something you're going to take away from this class, whether it be applied to the stage or applied to your life? And we go all the way around and everybody's sharing, and we get to the last woman in my class, and she's just like sitting there thinking for a second. And I remember this pause, and I was like, it's the last class. I hope that she's okay. And she goes, you guys, I think this is making me a better person. And I was like, oh, keep it together. Okay. Stay cool. And legitimately, that's what she said. And she's like, I've just noticed in my relationship with my children and my relationships with my partner and my relationships with my peers at work, she's like, I'm just so much more present. And as a teacher, that was really cool, because if I could sort of summarize like my relationship with improv, I'm also a pretty anxious person. I've been like anxiety, depression, pretty much my whole life. And it's just a place to be present with yourself and with other people. And that was just something that was like really cool. Like she said it's making me a better person, because that's something that like, this has made me a better, more present person. And as that pertains like practically to scene work, I'm sure you've understood this, and as much improv as you've taught and you've seen, you can tell an improviser that can go up there and sit in a chair and just sit in a chair and just be in a chair, and you're like, oh, there's something else going on there. Like, they don't have to fill the space. They don't have to be anything. They don't feel the pressure to be anything, to be funny, to have a really great, clever idea. They can just go up there and sit in a chair and just be present with themselves and like, yeah, okay, I'm here. I'm good. I can wait it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I say this absolutely to be impressive.
Good.
You already brought up the community floss.
Community floss, yeah. And now I'm going to evoke a poet, John Keats. That's right, because I took poetry classes in college.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But I'm sure negative capability was this concept that he had. There's like to be able to live in ambiguities without any irritable reaching after or looking. So the person sitting in the chair, I often think, yes, that is a big tell of people. And it's a big tell in myself as well as a performer. If I'm having a bad night on stage, I can usually sense it in the fact that I'm feeling this irritable, like I'm not doing something on stage. I'm not coming across. I'm not making something happen. My mind doesn't feel sharp.
Yep.
And it's like in that internal sort of dialogue that I have with myself is all that irritable reaching afterness. And I'm sure that it's apparent, it's blood in the water for an audience as well. But yeah, it is that instant sense of trust you have in that performer who's just sitting in the chair.
Have you read Hyperion?
I was just going to ask that.
Writing it down.
An improv book. No, it's not at all. But it does involve Keats a lot.
A lot.
Hyperion?
It's Hyperion. It's a sci-fi. It's great.
A sci-fi novel. Good. It's very good. Keats is pretty central to the story.
Central.
So
now, when you say this is a sci-fi novel, are you saying it is one small compact tome, or are you opening me up to like a 10-volume series?
It's like
in a
3
world
books. 3, maybe there are a couple more now.
There are a couple more, but you only need to read the first 2.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, Dan Simmons.
Sorry, Dan Simmons. Yeah.
And I said that like in an accusatory tone. I probably am going to read this and get into however many volumes it is and love it. But this is the way that I respond to people who give me TV shows to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I have an initial resentment to it, and it's like, God, now I've got to.
Yeah.
That's
this is
2
kinda
weeks of my life.
For sci-fi, this is kind of like the Fleabag of sci-fi.
Oh,
it's like
it is.
you're in, you do it, and you're out. You know what I mean? You get what you need, and
Yes.
you're like, and it's done.
I want a BBC version of all content for me.
We do the same stuff too. Like you were talking about like Keats. I'd say like our like snappy like woo woo reference. We talk about Alan Watts a lot, improv in the Tao, and just like that's where we sort of the Tao is just like the way of things. It's this.
Yeah.
It's just water. It's the way that like water flows. It's not presumptuous. It's just like
Tao.
Yeah, Taoism. Yeah, like Taoism. Yes. Yeah, and it's just really.
Emma is doing sign language.
But so we talk about the Tao also gets into like the secret agreements of like the yin and the yang, like which is pretty commonly commonly known. But we talk about like two person scenes. It's like the secret agreement is if I'm doing something that makes me happy, and Ashley is angry in the scene, we have a secret agreement going on that like my happiness is what is causing your anger. And
I'm going to keep helping you develop that emotion and vice versa.
To make her angry over and over again. So it's like, it is very cyclical.
Yeah.
Like, and then even like in your relationship to the audience as well, it's like, even if you're doing solo improv, like if there's no, well, going back really quickly to like 2-person scene work, we don't talk about, we hate the word like support player so much, or like the straight person, because it's like people will say it was like, oh, you were just lobbing me softballs and I'm just hitting them out of the park, and it's like, okay, so what if no one was there lobbing you softballs? Like it takes. Like both of those people are the ones who are responsible for this group project. Like if you take the batter out or if you take the pitcher out, like then nobody's playing baseball. Not to take it back to us.
Yeah.
Great way to tie in the
That's wisdom from Touch Baseball.
TOUC.
Yeah, it's funny. I think vulnerability was the big unlock for me, because I tend to approach things pretty cerebrally, and I'm not a deeply embodied person. Yeah. I don't know if that has to do with my Southern religious background.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah. And then there was something about improv that made space to be vulnerable, and then to figure out how like vulnerability isn't about making yourself unsafe. It's about like it's agency. It's like I'm going to make choices to present more of myself to people or to make myself more available to people because I want to. And making my scene partner matter is vulnerable. Being emotional on stage is vulnerable. Committing to it's funny. Sometimes people will be like, well, my character is sarcastic. And we talk a lot about like, there are really only 4 emotions that we worry about. And it's mad, sad, glad, and afraid. But because the nuance will come, and nuance comes like later on in a scene. Yeah. But like you can play any of those very clearly, and they all tree up to that. But sarcasm's emotional distance.
Yeah.
And my instincts to be sarcastic or to have emotional distance, it's like, this is a place where you can put that aside and choose not to be emotionally distant. And that was really powerful. And it made me a lot more embodied, present, for someone who's always in their head. And I don't mean to get gushy, but probably a big unlock was just starting to play with Ryan and realizing that the stuff we taught, I was like, oh, when you find the right people to play with that really make you feel safe, then you're like, oh, this is possible. And the swings get bigger, and the free fall is more fun, and
because you know you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna do a duo or a twosie prov question. So, like, and this tied to something that you were saying a moment ago, but it definitely gets to just a sense of agreement on stage and finding same pageness and taking care of one another, and that it's a vulnerable thing to make that your goal on stage, again, to like not want to make sure that you're getting a laugh or that you're doing something that's recognizably getting a thing, but you're like, I'm in a scene, maybe I internally start to feel that feeling that it's not going anywhere, but I need to redouble down on my return to the scene, return to my scene partner, figure out what that anger's coming from, build out that nuance, and having the trust to do that. That was it, sarcasm and distancing. So if you have Middleditch and Shorts over here, who do all of their out loud work on stage. Do you know what I'm talking about? They'll talk meta talk, or like if y'all watch the specials that they have. And the thing I'll tell my class when I ask them to watch it, it's like, you notice like in that first wedding episode where they go through all the names that they've had so far. And they just like, because clearly they're worried that they were going to forget people and they were just like quizzing themselves. And that's all like, showing their work on stage. And it has sort of a meta component. I'm curious to know whether or not you think that is distancing, because on the other end of that, if you've watched TJ and Dave enough, you know that they would think of that as like that would compromise their values to talk about their work out loud. On their special, the Justice This Is All Made Up, they have like a little bit of after show like thing where they go into a green room and talk about the show that they just did. And they have like a whole conversation to be like, who was that character again? Did we drop him? What was his name? And they have like a little bit of that. And that conversation, Middleditch and Shorts would have had on stage.
Yeah.
And so that's a big soup of a question, but it's just like, where do you fall? Like, I see y'all more from what I took in last year at the show, more on the TJ and Dave end of things, as opposed to the Middleditch and Shorts.
Definitely. I've got thoughts. I'll
tell you when you're wrong.
Yeah, perfect. Please do.
And I should also say that I appreciate both approaches, and I think both work. I do not like value one over the other necessarily, but
no, for sure. The Middleditch and Shorts special was, we watched it together. Like it was wildly entertaining. But as far as like what we're interested in, going back to like presence, I think the thing that we're chasing, I'm never like, I'm sorry, I answer questions in a soupy sort of way. I'm never chasing like melodrama in improv, but I do think that when folks are present, when folks take the time to show their work, you are creating a distance with yourself and with the audience from your work. Yeah. And I think that what we're really interested in is being as present as possible and as embodied as possible as these characters. Yeah. And so we talk about like some of our like favorite characters in sitcoms or shows or whatever. Like the example we always give is like Leslie Knope doesn't know that she's funny. Like these characters do not know that they're funny. And what's fun to watch about those characters is to watch them like fail and fight against their predispositions and instincts to be like, in her case, to be like insanely like organized and just like super like overachieving, seeing the impacts that has on like other characters' lives, and then having to watch her sort of like put that together again. That process is so like, and again, we're talking about a sitcom, but it's so human. There's something really human about that, to like watch that process happen. It's like really fun to watch her insane hijinks, but like when she goes too far and her relationship is affected with like Ron Swanson and they have this like moment together, that is like the moving human part of it that I think really interests us specifically. Because if it's all just commentary, it's just like joke.
Yeah.
And I talk about it like not passing the like emotional Turing test. I think there's just a lot of...
Yeah, you like see a scene where someone's, I don't know, someone's like spouse gets killed by a vampire. And they're like, oh no. And you're like, okay, wait. Like your loved one literally died in the sea. And it's like one of the notes I still get, which maybe like gestures towards this question is don't play coy. Don't wink too often at the audience. And so I think I agree with you, Ryan. Like I want to do what's most human, but I also am really bad about like breaking and just being delighted by what's going on and then finding myself like making mistakes. But I don't know, there's like, it's kind of in between. Like if it's going to be, if it's more vulnerable to just sort of like acknowledge your mistake and fix it in the moment, I would rather do that than sort of be tripped up by it. Even if that means like getting a little meta or breaking the fourth wall. But I don't want to, it's capacity. I guess it's like, I want to have both sort of available to me to whatever's going to take care of my scene partner better and like keep me there. Cause that's the thing is the audience, I know some folks are like, oh, the audience isn't really in the room with you. Like, don't think about them, which I get. Like, I'm not trying to chase laughter, but they're there and their energy and like you're making inside jokes with them. So it's important that, I don't know, we're all in the room at some point. I don't know. That wasn't a very good answer, but.
No, that's a great, and I think it could depend like night to night with different groups or in the mood that I'm in. So I would ideally love to have those moments of pure humanity and authenticity and have those like true emotional character moments reveal themselves in a magical way that I have seen TJ and Dave do many times over. And that you feel as though sometimes a little meta talk might sacrifice a little bit, but at the same time, I don't mind that end of things and that sacrifice because it is all in an effort to, as you were saying, like, let's just clear this up now. Let's not let this hold down what we're doing. Let's just like make it a moment to sort of clear up some things, get on that group by the same pageness. It's like, let's at the end of the day, if we're all agreeing on what we're doing together, that's the most important thing. Maybe this isn't the night for us to have like the biggest breakthrough of character.
Well,
but
if someone sees me be human on stage and be like, she messed up, like that's fine. I think here's an eloquent way to put it. I want to take my characters as seriously as possible. And not take myself too seriously. Like me, Ashley versus my characters.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna like sacrifice clarity at the expense of like trying to stay quote unquote like present. And that's something that I teach too, like even shoring up elements of base reality in scenes where it's like, I'll tell students to be like, you're not quite sure where you are in a scene or what your relationship is like, say, well, Dad. And then audience is going to kind of laugh because it is this like meta like gesture, but like it's not for the sake of getting that laugh. It's for the sake of creating clarity. Then you now have a new contextual piece to play with. And that's going to give your scene more direction than just two floating heads in an amorphous space.
I answer that question a lot. I say, like the who, what, and where based reality stuff as soon as possible. And it's like, and people are like, should it be heavy-handed? And I'm like, ideally, over time, you want to be more deft in these things. You want it to have a lighter touch, but at the same time, I think, especially early on, if you haven't been performing with people very much or performing at all very much, heavy-handed is fine. And don't like fault yourself if it is something like, hello, Dad. Like, I mean, if that's, because you will immediately experience how beneficial that is.
Yes.
Yeah, we do an exercise called Stop Improvising as Quickly as Possible. And we call it as soon as you get through all the elements of base reality, and then like have an emotional point of view. Yeah. And we'll do it, and then people will be like, wow, like I wanted to stay in that scene. That could have been such a good scene. And I was like, it was a good scene because you knew what was happening. And it's like, I don't know why it's so precious in those first couple moments when it's like, I'm doing a scene as opposed to an exercise, but it's like, just make some choices and get it out there so you can start having fun. Because at the end of the day, for as like heady as we get about all of it, I am like, it is more fun for everybody to know what's going on.
It really is.
Go up there and have fun, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a broken record sort of thing that I feel like as a teacher, a lot of times I feel like we just keep coming back to the same point.
Yeah. And then my favorite thing is when they're like, I noticed you didn't really establish where you were in your scene. And I'm like, yeah.
When that comes.
Yeah, they see your show. And you're like,
you happen the next day in class, you have to answer for yourself.
And you're like, yeah, I know.
I have just now gotten used to that about a year later. I teach about 3 sections at a time, and all of them have, like, really in this past year, we've really built up our student community, and they're going to all the shows, and it feels like very, very vibrant in that way, and it's an exciting thing. But it also means that at our main stage shows, I'm seeing like a front row full of my students, and like early on, I was like, oh shit, I gotta put my money where my mouth is, and and then getting all of those things. I'm now getting, it's okay, and I'm okay if I can give them examples of failure as well.
Oh, 1,000%.
And you have to. We talk about batting average all the time. Like,
yes,
it's coming from a music background. Like, imagine you're learning to play piano and the keys on the keyboard change places every single time. Like we're trying. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training. Like we're literally like training our instincts. And so like I am just as susceptible to a show without these elements as anybody else is, like having done it for even as long as I've been, and people that have been doing it a lot longer for me. And I think that's one of the things that's like really great about it. It's like you can still get up there and eat shit.
Yeah.
When students are like, when did you, like, how long did it take you to be like finally like good at it? And I was like, no, I still hate myself. To be clear. But that's the thing. It's the joy of constantly finding it with somebody. But it's like it's like any relationship. I'm like, it'd be like asking someone like, so when did you get good at marriage? Right? Or anything else that's like lifelong or long term.
I was just going to say, you said this is an art form that defies mastery, and I want to talk a little bit about who you consider like improv expertise or experts. In general, improv kind of resists mastery in sort of ways. And I have, all sorts of stories to go along with that about different people that I've been taught by or been coached under, that particularly bad experiences are oftentimes when you have someone who feels as though they know what right improv is, and they know it's not like we're opening up capacity. It's just like, I have a method, and I think if you're not doing it this way, and they're very clear about that. And we don't have to name names.
No, I'm not going to name names.
But I did want to, see, like, how do you embrace...
Just like Carl. It was Carl.
How does Improv Shop Nashville, the two of you, your school, St. Louis School of Improv, or however that looks right now, how do you embrace, like, tradition and expertise in our, still nascent art form, while at the same time being present to your own sort of formulation of what this is?
So I think that one of the neat things about our approach is we're pretty upfront about we talk about sort of pattern, I guess, like in hide the knife and game and things like that. But our approach is like we specifically do emotion and relationship. Yeah. That's why group mind is so important. That's why we teach folks how to get into like, you have to react to your scene partner emotionally. That is the hidden communication that lets them know that what they're doing is working. And so we've kind of started really developing how to get folks to do that, to be actors as improvisers, as opposed to just sort of trying to find a funny thing or a weird thing and do it over and over. It's like, how do you do a true thing, and make discoveries about your character. And we have a curriculum, but all of our teachers kind of have their own spin sounds wrong, but just sort of like way of approaching it and getting inside of scenes and side coaching and all of that, which is I think just made the curriculum really, really nice, because there's a lot of diversity in it, and how folks approach it, and problem solve, which is really fun for me. I think it has to do, my big influence is our general manager, and who is responsible for more things at the Improv Shop than any of us would like to admit. And we're always trying to help him, but he's still in charge of everything. But his name's Andy Slowey, and he's been improvising for 25 years. Yeah. And he just...
Chicago improviser
originally. But just kind of started in recent years being like, I've seen so much improv, and I've seen sort of what works and doesn't, but then also what's like, when you can see that you've seen the same scene a million times, regardless of how quote unquote successful it is. And it's like, but how do we like find new things? And it just has to do with the human stuff going on stage. So it's about drilling down to that human stuff. And he's really done this amazing job of like just starting to attack that and talking to us about it, so we can all approach that together. Yeah, and just like creating tools and exercises, because like we talk about improv games and things that like have just existed for a long time, which are really great. But they're our tools in order to like advance the art form. Like our tools also need to get sharper. So he talks about like theater games, like being like a really great like start, but it's like we have to, just like the automobile or whatever, we started with this, and it's like, okay, well, we attack this with a blunt instrument versus like a scalpel. So like we're like constant. He, in particular, has, even in the last like 2 years, developed so much language and so many exercises around like, here's how we think about this, here's how we talk about this, so we can not only like, I guess, not only just like talk about it, but actually like diagnose scenes and articulately say like, here's where the opportunity was in this scene relative to this perspective on improvisation, which is like really exciting. As opposed to like, that was not funny to me. Yeah. Which is just such a hard, difficult, impossible note to give or receive. Where I'm like, thank you. It's like there are ways to sort of get folks to be like, oh, what do you need here? What does your scene partner need here? What makes sense? He's really great teacher. Also, just like an incredible improviser. And like that's the other thing too, is lack of ego about it. It's never sort of like, you should only do improv here. He's like, go do improv everywhere. Oh, go do it. Go learn it. He's like, if I moved to another city, I would immediately take classes in that city. If you have a chance to do it other places, if you want to like work on a workshop and offer it, if I can help you, if you have a show idea, like it's just a very generous sort of way of approaching it. It's not sort of the like so many sort of like small businesses, or I had nonprofit experience, but where everything is like held on so tightly because the resources are limited and the stakes are high. Yeah. He's like, no, more improv the better. Like there's no, it's not so precious that you have to like have your loyalty here or something. Yeah. And then that emphasis on group mind. So he also teaches coaches. He has a coaching class. And we sort of train teachers to teach when we need new faculty. Oh, that's nice. But his thing is like, half of the hard work is, if you're on an improv team, being real people to each other. It's like, is there tension? You have to talk about it. We have to like have the hard conversations as people. We have to deal with conflict. We have to like do and not sort of shove it under the rug. And that emphasis on like, how do we be real and honest and vulnerable and really like tackle those hard things, I think has just sort of informed the way we teach it, just methodologically. It informs the way we approach just teamwork in general. It informs the way teams emerge, like independent teams emerge and start putting on shows. Yeah.
going back to like affecting like outside of the shop, just like empathy being a prerequisite to having tough conversations, which doesn't just work on a improv team dynamic. Like that's a great, you feel, speaking of like relationships, it's like, if you feel psychologically safe with a partner, like you can take bigger swings with like someone you're in like a romantic relationship with. Yeah. I can be vulnerable with you. I can have a tough conversation with you because I know that like our relationship is not at stake. And you can build that kind of that tissue with people that you play with peers at work or family members or whatever, with empathy being like the prerequisite for all of that. It just makes it so much easier.
And that's a condition, that empathetic sort of environment, fostering that to get people again out of that mindset that we just immediately go to, that the situation is going to make or break me with this person. This situation, this argument will sever us, or it's like, no, it's a thing that you can work with and still come back tomorrow and start again.
It's sort of there's a very much practice what you preach kind of mentality. We don't like, there's a lot of lip service to be paid to things like vulnerability and empathy. And then there's the kind of like, and then when the rubber meets the road, this can really suck, but it's like good, it's good hard work. And that's what we're like committed to doing, whether it's in class or whether it's with teams that are having conflict. But I think that's given us a lot of permission to take the art form seriously, which for anyone who's done improv knows what it is like to be the butt of every sort of like theater joke.
And again, our similar positions. It's like, I take this art form seriously. This is seriously, most of my income is tied to this thing. While at the same time, I don't want to take it too seriously because that's inherent to the process as well. But it's a complicated headspace to be in sometimes.
When your parents come to watch and are like, so how does this make you money? And you're like,
what was that?
Well, awesome, y'all. Just to follow up, like the Nashville sort of scene, we have a lot of threads coming in, predominantly Chicago-based improvisers. Like, there's a strong connection between that. We have people who were in New York and LA, and then like most of our teaching core early on were all people who had attended, your IO, UCB, or the Magnet, or all these other more known institutions, and they populated most of our faculty and teaching core. But we are getting to a point now where we're bringing on teachers who have just come out of our training program. And so now we've hit that level of generation where it's like, we've taken all these strains of thoughts and everybody has very different approaches. And I think that's good. I think that's a good ecosystem to have a diversity of approaches from every teacher. But now it's, should we be more intentional about what our school of thought is or whatever, or is it just going to organically, is it happening and we don't really have to name it? It's just, it is happening. I'm not sure what the
That's
question
we talk
or
about a lot.
is.
And it's that we talk about just the audacity of claiming something.
Yeah.
Kind of like taking yourself seriously or your art form seriously. But it's like, it's all those other theaters and methodologies and stuff at some point were just sort of a list of bullet points in someone's brain until they wrote them down. And it's like, well, maybe we write it down and name it. And
also, I mean, I think having enough experience, having seen improv at this point, like from all over, those teams are still like, we do like a more IO style or a more like UCB style. Like that didn't exist, like I should say, one day, and then now it does exist, and that is like the vocabulary that we like collectively use. But like having seen teams at festivals from around like self-identify as like, we're in New York, like UCB style, and seeing what they do, what they execute upon, having seen enough and taught enough improv in our own scene, we're like, we are different. Like at this point,
y'all have that experience too, where you're like, I can tell our approaches.
Yes. There are those differences. And I think it, I alluded to some bad experiences with some teachers earlier, but like there are definitely philosophical and approach differences that we're starting to notice, and that I personally am starting to notice, and like to distance myself a little bit away from game theory and UCB sort of stuff, because I think it lends itself to a mastery mentality, if that makes sense. Like, wanting to the process of heightening and escalation becomes like this mathematical sort of thing at a certain point. And I've really always been drawn to something that T.J. Jagodowski said in the book that they did. He was like, we like to think of our characters and centering our scenes around characters and relationships, and as opposed to heightening, we're developing. And it's just in that fine distinction right there is one of the lines that I can see a lot of differences and approaches with people. Are you more wed to this notion of, here's this thing, I'm going to heighten it, I'm going to hit it 3 times, and it's like this like product, as opposed to, are we over on the more developing side of thing? I think in general, Nashville is a little bit more on the developing side of thing, but we still have like a lot of different competing strands.
We tell folks to commit to emotions before they know why, which is the hard part. Decide it makes you happy, and then keep being happy until you can discover who this person is and why it matters so much to them. But that's I think if it was like boiled down, God, I shouldn't be the one to boil it down into one line. But if I was, I think it's just be affected by your scene partner. Not without the condition. It's not conditional. So it's like, it's be affected no matter what. Not if as long as it's funny, or as long as it's, it's just do it. Right. Like, just be affected, and that you will discover inside of that why it is already funny or interesting or clever or what have you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Here. I hope to see you soon.
Likewise.
And I will see you.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of Improv Saves, World Agrees. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and follow at Unscripted Improv and at Improv Saves Podcast on social media. Improv Saves, World Agrees is hosted by Mike Garvin, produced by Christina Ashworth and Emma Sapika, edited by Cammie York, mixed and mastered by Dave Strumfeld. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us for our next issue to find out who will agree next.